Guys, welcome to the Vlad Catcher Show, the number one show for founders, execs, and entrepreneurs who are scaling their businesses. And with us today, we have Nick Franklin. He is the founder and CEO of ChartMogul. And in this video, we're going to discuss how he started it and scaled this business. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vlad. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Well, you guys have been in business for 10 years and you've built this really successful company. And I'm very interested, what's the origin story of ChartMogul? Where did this thing come from?
Sure. Well, yeah, we started 2014. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So originally, the idea, before starting this business, I used to work for Zendesk. Zendesk is now, this big customer service SaaS company. Back then it was obviously smaller. And I was in the commercial side of the business. I was sort of the head of their European sort of commercial side, sales, account management, support, and then I was their head of Asia region, Asia Pac region. And we had these dashboards we'd built internally to sort of measure revenue performance, monthly recurring revenue, what wins we'd had that week. And I was checking that dashboard a lot. The global head of sales was checking that dashboard a lot, and it's just quite sticky, but it was not the greatest user experience. And I felt like there was sort of two things going on. One, I was kind of wanting to get back into product, which is kind of really where my passion is like designing and building great products. And that's what I was doing before I got into sales at Zendesk. So I was looking for something to get to get me back into building products. I wanted to have a go at starting my own company. And I just sort of thought I could perhaps build something a bit like a bit like Google Analytics, but for measuring subscription revenue or SaaS metrics revenue. And I just felt like Zendesk had built something custom in-house. Other companies have built something custom in-house. Maybe there was enough SaaS companies and subscription companies out there that needed something like this. I mean, in hindsight, it seems obvious now. There's like tons of SaaS and subscription companies, but back in 2014, that didn't seem like it was a sure thing. Yeah. So left my role at Zendesk, built this product, and the rest is history, I guess.
So you were in sales at this company, working and wanted to have more visibility into the analytics from your side, right? You wanted to have more visibility into as the company's selling the product and service, so you could see more data about what's happening, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to see, when I was head of Asia Pacific region, I couldn't really see, there's a lot of different countries, and couldn't really do some answer basic questions. You couldn't say, well, what's a better lifetime value, Singapore or India or Japan, and it was just really hard to get answers to basic questions and see the performance of the region. And so I just felt like I could create, it'd be cool to create a kind of analytics dashboard, analytics product to give people who are running subscription businesses and SaaS businesses, just much more insight into the performance of their business. So they could really understand their business and measure their business.
Yeah, and like one use case you're mentioning is like, which type of customers have higher LTV, for example, right?
Exactly. Like that's a pretty critical question to ask. You want to know, what type of businesses are more likely to convert from free trial to paid, which ones are more likely to stick with you for longer, right? And pay more as well and expand over time. So, and that really affects, what type of markets you go after, what kind of businesses you go after, which geographies you go into, and how much you spend on marketing, right? You want to be spending, marketing on acquiring the right type of customers who are going to stick with you for longer. So subscription analytics is sort of the domain that we're in, and that's what we do. Yeah.
And another part that I think is kind of fascinating is you took kind of an unconventional path from most founders, right? Many founders raise huge amount of capital for their business, but you've been in business for over 10 years and you did not raise a lot of venture capital. So how did you do this, Nick? Like, what was the key to succeed in building a successful business like this without so much venture capital?
Yeah, I mean, we raised some seed money, but still, less than $4 million. I think, I don't know. It's just my personality. I like things to be kind of efficient and lean. That's what I like. And if there's too much waste and there's too much overspend, I just don't feel comfortable with it. I don't know. Maybe that's like something about me. But I just never got comfortable with this idea of, raising tons and tons of money and throwing it at different initiatives without, it tends to drive a lot of inefficiencies when that happens. And that's fine for certain types of business. But yeah, just for us and our path, we like to keep it lean. We kept it efficient. We kept most R&D in Europe and Asia. Salaries are a little bit less than in the US. And we have a go-to-market team in North America, but we kept most of the R&D in Europe and Asia. So I think that also keeps costs down. But yeah, I think that's just the way I like to run things, is kind of lean, make sure every dollar is well spent. And, somehow I just feel like better if things are sort of done that way. So, and also, we are in a niche. We haven't been chasing like unicorn status. We haven't been, doing growth at any cost. So we've been building a solid business that is profitable and grows at a good pace. But we're not looking for, we generally haven't been trying to do hyper growth and these kind of things. So yeah, I think it just kind of suits me. I think the term is fund strapped. It's a term I've heard before, where you raise a bit of money, but then you sort of, it's not bootstrapping because you raise money, but it's not the VC path of doing A round, B round, C round, D round. That just wasn't for us. Didn't make sense for our business. I wasn't against it like that. When I was, before I started this business, I was an employee, right, at Zendesk, and that's the path they went down. They did the traditional VC path. They went public. But for us, it's somehow, for our business model, for our market, didn't quite make sense. So, we're happy with the path we took, really, of staying lean, growing more organically.
And what's cool about it is that it kind of, the path you took, it kind of gets you to stay more disciplined, right? Because that way you're watching your capital. So basically you can't spend 10 times more than you bring in, so you grow more carefully, which is the problem many startups run into, right? This exact problem.
Right. I think I guess I have a theory is that really great businesses are sometimes badly run, right? Like if you have an amazing competitive advantage or some sort of monopoly or network effects, like you're a Facebook or something like that, you can afford to kind of spend money on loads of different initiatives, and they don't need to all work out. Or you can hire a ton of people, and if half of them aren't super productive, it doesn't really matter if you have sort of monopoly in social networking or great network effects. But when you're a B2B SaaS without any natural monopoly, and you just have to like really build the best product you can possibly build and serve your customers as well as you can, then yeah, I think the only way to go is just to be a really well-run, really efficient business. And that's I think it's more out of necessity than anything else for us. Yeah.
And from my research, you guys have two main products, right? Which is the CRM and then the subscription analytics product. Can you briefly walk us through kind of what are the core use cases and benefits of those two products?
Sure. Yeah. So we started in subscription analytics. That's our main product, I guess, that we're known for. Subscription analytics. So what it does is, you plug it in, you create an account. It's free to try. There's also a free plan if you're a SaaS business with less than 10K MRR. It's completely free. You sign up, and then you connect your billing systems, usually something like Stripe, or if you're doing mobile subscription, it might be App Store, Google Play, or it could be another system like Paddle or Recurly or ChargeBeep. Anyway, you connect those. It's a few clicks. We ingest all the billing data. And from that, there's a few different things we can do. The first is, we can calculate all your core key SaaS metrics, subscription metrics. So monthly recurring revenue, annual run rate, retention rates, lifetime value. We can, you can do things like cohort analysis. And so really, and it's got all these tools and sort of features around that for helping you get your metrics, 100% perfectly accurate. So a whole bunch of data cleaning tooling around all that to make sure you can get your metrics 100% accurate. So what that does is the main use case there, I guess, is about, automating the process of doing all your sort of business KPI reporting. It would be a very manual process previously. You'd have to somehow do it yourself, which would be very, very difficult. So we just save companies a ton of time. And we also show them stuff and give them reports they didn't even think that they needed until they see it. They're like, oh, sometimes they plug ChartMogul in, they see something, they're like, oh, damn, I didn't even think about, looking at my business in that way. So we also sort of curate what reports subscription businesses, should be looking at. So that's kind of the automation side of things. And then there's also kind of getting insights, right? So with analytics, you want to be able to help our users who are mostly kind of other founders, CEOs, CROs, go-to-market teams, anyone who's trying to grow basically the recurring revenue of the business. And we help them to, figure out what is the best way to, what decisions they could make that might help grow the business faster, right? So if they're seeing that, some segment of customers, has much higher retention than others, they might want to focus more energy on acquiring more customers like that and things like this. So, or optimizing pricing is something that people, use our software a lot for. If they're going through a pricing change, they might analyze how their current pricing and plans are performing, and then they could figure out, what's the best way to kind of tweak their pricing in a sort of more data-driven way. So that's the use cases for subscription analytics. There's more things that it can do. You can see which marketing channels are performing better than others and things like that. But that's really subscription analytics. And then CRM. So we launched CRM about 2 years ago, and obviously there's lots of CRMs out there, right? But there's no CRM that's really tailor-made for B2B SaaS companies. And so we thought there's something we can bring to the table in CRM where, and it's really meant for inside sales teams. You don't use ChartMogul to do CRM to do outbound much. It's mostly for people doing sort of product-led growth, inside sales. And that is the advantage of ChartMogul CRM is, it's really tightly integrated with the subscription analytics and the billing systems. So it's got all the standard features, you got like sequences, tasks, email templates, deals, opportunities, that kind of stuff, custom pipelines, all this kind of thing. But it gets really interesting when you combine CRM and subscription analytics. You can do really interesting things. So, if somebody schedules to cancel their subscription, in Stripe, we can pick that up as like a scheduled cancellation. And then in the CRM, automatically you can set up a workflow automation, or automatically like assign a task to the correct account owner for that account, if they're over a certain MRR value or something like that. And then they get a reminder, hey, you might want to follow up, try and deflect the churn. So you can have like these tight integrations between the billing system and the CRM and the sales tool, basically. And also on the analytics side, when you have knowledge of the entire subscription lifecycle, from the time they become a lead to creating a free trial to converting to a paid customer, upgrading, downgrading, churning, etc., you get the full lifecycle in one system. You can do really interesting analytics, really advanced forecasting that it just isn't possible to build out in traditional CRMs or any other CRM really. So that's the kind of overview, I guess, of the two solutions, subscription analytics and then CRM. We just thought we could bring something unique to the table in CRM. It's been really fun having a second product, actually. A bit of, as you said, I've been in business for a long time, and therefore, I think it's given me a little bit of a lease on life in terms of my excitement as well. It's like having a second product to work on. So that's kind of been cool.
So for 8 years building subscription analytics, and then 2 years added the CRM. And could you give like a few examples of the type of analytics that would be kind of difficult for folks to get without ChartMogul? Something that way, some insights you can help them discover that would help them to grow their business.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it's like just the ease of use, right? Like you can ingest marketing channel and things like that. And we have this new AI enrichment tool where, with a few clicks, you can enrich all your customers with things like industry, employee count, geolocation, all those kind of things. And so you can enrich your customers really quickly and really easily, and then start to segment things like lifetime value by any metric you like. So it allows you to really quickly hone in on your ICP, like your ideal customer profile, and see, and identify that. So a lot of it's just the ability to quickly connect Stripe, connect other systems that you might have, like Segment, HubSpot, or any other system that you might have, attribution data in or anything like that, plus add on our AI enrichment stuff. And you really have a lot of additional metadata about your subscribers. And then you can just slice your subscriber base very quickly by these kind of different attributes. And that will allow you to see things like, which marketing channels are converting better to paid subscribers, which of those paid subscribers from which channels are sticking around for longer, things like that. So a lot of it's about just kind of really, really tactile user experience, really quick and easy setup. And you could kind of potentially build some of this stuff with a traditional BI product or BI stack. It would just be a ton of work. And each time you need to ask a new question, it might take a couple of weeks to get the answer. Whereas with us, the business, the people, who are kind of in the business side, they can actually just answer their own questions. And that's really empowering for them, is that they can get the answers they need themselves very, very quickly and then make decisions faster versus, having to go to the data team, ask for, a report, wait for it, etc. So a lot of it's about democratizing the access to data and insights as well.
Nick, and one more thing, one of the most expensive things for businesses is generally customer acquisition, right? Acquiring leads and acquiring customers. And the question I'd like to ask you, what worked well for you guys, for ChartMogul, for customer acquisition, and what did not work well for customer acquisition?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely right that, marketing and customer acquisition, probably the hardest job in some ways in SaaS. I can tell you what didn't work, and that for us, because that's always clear in my mind, is outbound, right? So outbound is something I think it works for some businesses. For some reason, it didn't work for us, and we tried a few different times in a few different ways, and somehow it just didn't work out. Maybe because our core sort of customer, our core ICP is sort of SaaS founders, SaaS go-to-market leaders, and I think they're probably just really oversaturated and just tired of getting outbound email to the point that it just feels like, a little spammy at this point. So they're probably just tired of that. I know I am. And so, yeah, we couldn't get outbound working, and that's fine. But yeah, what did work? So I think content, if you can have really good content, that always works well. We're also trying to get into YouTube this year. One thing that works well for us is we have nearly 3,000 active ChartMogul accounts now, SaaS businesses using the product. So what we've been doing the last few years is sort of aggregating that data, anonymizing that data, and using that unique data set to create these sort of really insightful industry benchmark reports. So we produce one of those about once a quarter, and they're always pretty popular and get a lot of interest get us a lot of interest. I think other things work well. Sometimes they work for a while and they stop working. So, in the early days when we were just getting started, just wanting to get our first few leads, partnering with Stripe and Recurly and Braintree and ChargeBee and those guys, they didn't have any subscription analytics or SaaS metrics in their products. So we come along and built that, and with an integration, and they were happy to, list us on their website, recommend us. Sometimes some of those companies even did special offer in their newsletter to their customers. I was able to persuade them to do that for us. So yeah, I remember, in the first few months, when we launched our Recurly integration, they put a special offer in their newsletter. And at the time, Recurly didn't have any SaaS metrics, subscription analytics in their product, and we had so many Recurly customers signing up for a free trial the following 24 hours after that newsletter went out that actually broke our servers. So and we had to panic and kind of so there's you just have to try everything, and then sometimes there's things that might work for a while and then they stop working, and there are some things that always work well. I think building an audience is one of the most kind of robust long-term things you can do. So, we focus on LinkedIn, a bit on X, Twitter, and then, on YouTube now as well to try and build our audience. And we have a newsletter and things like that. So I think that's the most sustainable thing you can do. Build an audience just takes a really long time, a lot of work.
One more part I'd like to understand, what's the ideal customer for ChartMogul? Like, what's the size, right? I understand that they're B2B SaaS companies, but what's the sweet spot, right, for your customer base? How many employees? What's the size?
Yeah, sure. So it's sort of like our real sweet spot is sort of 0 to 100 million, and that's obviously a big range. So I would say more like 0 to 50 million. If you're very small and you're less than 10K MRR, you're just getting started, then the product is free. So there, we have a lot of over 1,000 or something, active free accounts, and then we have almost 2,000 sort of paid accounts. And that's, they're people that are, between a couple of 100,000 a year and sort of 40, 50 million a year. We have a few companies that are over 100 million ARR, some public SaaS companies, but the majority is in that kind of, 1 to 30 million ARR range. So they're really sort of SMB to some sort of slightly larger, mid-sized SaaS companies. They generally have between 10 and 200 employees. Yes, tend to still be founder-led as well. Yeah, although a lot of SaaS, always a lot of M&A activity in SaaS. So one of our biggest reasons for churn at ChartMogul is the company got acquired by private equity or something like that, and they want to cut costs, and then that's it's a weird reason for churn. Usually people churn, in other companies because they migrated to a different product, or they don't like the product or something like that. For us, it's one of the biggest reasons for churn is acquisition.
It's interesting.
So,
yeah. And one part, I'm really interested in scaling businesses, right? Because you built this really successful business. What would you say are your biggest learnings post 1 million ARR? And yours is actually even more interesting because you did it, right, without raising a whole bunch of capital. So what would you say are your biggest learnings in scaling a business?
yeah, so I think the first million, I mean, this sounds a little funny because I know, SaaS founders getting started today, it's really hard sometimes to get that first million ARR. For us, honestly, it wasn't that difficult. Like, it wasn't like the biggest grind. Like, we released a product that had a lot of like latent demand. So, there was a need in the market that existed that just wasn't being served because, before ChartMogul and one or two others of our competitors that launched around the same time, there was no product in the market back in 2014 for doing subscription analytics at all. You had to do it yourself somehow using Excel. So we came along with a product that met a need that was already existed in the market. So for the first year or two, we were just kind of hoovering up this latent demand. And, I think at the end of our first year, we got our first customer in January 2015. I think at the end of 2015, we were at about $600,000 ARR, so nearly $1 million, on our way to $1 million. And, a few months after that, hit $1 million ARR. So it wasn't, I think it was like it was like a pull from the market for the first million for us, which isn't normal. I think the journey from 1 to 10, much harder. I think around about 2 or 3 million, all of that latent demand started to we started to max out the kind of like low-hanging fruit. Also, the billing systems like Stripe and Recurly, they did launch their own, internal analytics as well. So for businesses, there was something that they could get, included when you have Stripe or something like that. So, we were sort of having to differentiate by being much more advanced analytics and things like that. And also we had to figure out how do we go beyond just, the market pull, and how do we actually generate demand, grow the market. And so, that was really tough. That sort of 3 to 10 million was a really tough slog. And yeah, what did we do? We tried everything. We tried everything. Paid advertising, events, content, social, launching now this new product. So just, I don't know if I have a real answer about scaling the revenue, except for you just got to try everything and keep pushing. Don't get tired. Hire great people, and make sure you have a great product as well, right? Like the biggest sort of drag on SaaS growth is often on the churn side, and like retention. And if it's really, it's really hard to acquire a new customer, but people give that so much focus. But if you can just keep the customers you have because they love your product and they love your service, that's much easier actually. So we always had great customer service. We always try to get back to people, within an hour with really technical support people who could really help them out. And we always, I'm a really product focused founder. That's what I'm really passionate about. I have a bit of experience in sales, but mostly my passion is in making really nice products. I kind of think I want ChartMogul to be like Apple Computer, like beautiful products, but in B2B subscription analytics, but that's sort of what I want to do. So it's like I always focus on making the product as great as we could make it, so we have, better retention than our competitors and things like that. So I don't know if there's one thing, honestly. It's like you just got to be relentless, and you got to stick at it, and you got to have great people, and you got to invest well. And I don't know. But yeah, we didn't pour money into, building up huge SDR teams, because I said we couldn't really find ways to deploy lots of capital to generate growth. So I think in certain businesses, maybe it's easier to just deploy lots of capital and get lots of customers. In our business, that's extremely hard. There just aren't many ways to do effective paid acquisition. So a lot of it came down to like the power of our ideas, right? Like what creative thinking could we come up with that might lead, us to go viral. Maybe it's a piece of content, maybe it's a particular, product feature or something like that. So, sorry, I'm not sure if that's the cleanest answer or the clearest answer, but I think just try everything and double down on what works.
Well, that's actually really helpful, because some people, they might be looking for that one thing. They think that is that one thing, but you're basically saying for you guys, there was not that one thing. You're saying you had to do many different things, and kind of some of those things generate results, and together, all those things is how you scale.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you mentioned product. You kind of walked me into my next question for you. What are some of your biggest product learnings? And how active are you still in the product, right? Like, were you able to get that product manager to kind of make your job easier, or are you still very active in product today?
So yeah, I am very active. I'm the CEO, but I'm also the CPO, I guess. I'm the head of product. But I do have 5 fantastic product managers, product designers, who I work really closely with. We review each other's work. I spend a lot of my week, reviewing feature specification documents and giving feedback. I spend at least half my time meeting with product people, engineers, engineering teams, and to talk through, projects, features, etc. So yeah, like I have a ton of learnings on product. I think one of them, I think, is if you want to have a great product and a great platform, the founder does need to be pretty involved. I think it's extremely hard to hire a head of product to kind of just take over and do a great job. I think for one of our secret sauce is that me as the founder, I'm still very much involved in product, and that's kind of my passion, and that's, I think, leads to great results. Learnings in product. I mean, I think like if we'd had the product we have today, 8-9 years ago when we were early on in the journey, we would be on our way to an IPO right now, probably. I think which we are not, sadly. So I think maybe in the early days we were really just trying to build something really quick, and we didn't know 100% what subscription analytics would be. And so we built a ton of features and to get traction, but we didn't, I think, pay enough attention to creating a cleanly architected platform that was, really future-proof, low tech debt. So we definitely paid the price for that around sort of 2018, 2019. We kind of took a step back and said, okay, now we have a pretty clear vision for, what ChartMogul needs to be, what a subscription analytics platform needs to be, what are the various components it should have, and how they should work together. Let's re-architect this and create a clean architect that's kind of future-proof. And so that was a lot of pain to go through that process. That took about 4 or 5 years to complete. But it really paid off because now we have a company's about 65, 66 people. Half of that is engineering. So 50% engineering, and they're split into these bunch of different 5 or 6 product development teams. And now each product development team can sort of work in swim lanes. So we've got a clean architecture, clean division of responsibilities among not only the teams, but among the code. And therefore, each team is able to make progress, usually without relying on the other team as well. And they're not tripping over each other. And that was not the case in the beginning. So if I could go back in time and do it again, I'd figure that out, from the get-go, so that, each team can kind of make progress. And, hiring more engineers does actually equate to more productivity. Whereas if you don't have a cleanly architected platform, hiring more engineers doesn't help you get anywhere. So yeah, a lot of learnings. I'm not sure if that's on the product side or more on the sort of engineering architecture side, but definitely rookie founder mistakes there of not thinking more long-term and not thinking more about scale and platform scale and platform architecture early on. But now it's a joy to work at ChartMogul now because, we have a really solid pace of innovation and we're constantly shipping new things. So I'm more excited about working at ChartMogul today than I was like 5 or 6 years ago, when we started getting bogged down with tech debt. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a particularly fun answer to what I learned about product, but that was definitely a big learning. Sorry.
Interesting, Nick. You mentioned hiring. It makes me think of kind of another question I have for you. What's a hire that you've made that was really, really impactful and why? And I know you probably made many hires, right? But what's like a surprising, something that you think many startups or SaaS businesses might not think about that hire or at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, there were some hires that, there were some that were kind of obvious, right? Like early on, I'm not a big fan of doing accounting and paperwork and finance. So, early on hiring a head of, VP finance operations to handle all that side of the business was really impactful because, that just frees up a ton of time for me to focus on, the more unique elements of our business because, every company has similar needs when it comes to kind of the paperwork side. I think less obvious ones were, I don't know, there are a bunch, we have like an in-house lawyer, for example, which is pretty odd for a company of 65 people. And, but somehow, it gives us a lot of leverage. And, it's amazing especially, with doing data analysis, and being operating in the EU and California and the US, all these like data privacy laws and staying compliant there, or, even getting the, SOC 2 compliance, or, just helping with customers with their contracts. That was, it's amazing how useful having a lawyer in-house is actually. So, I think we hired our in-house counsel, around 40 or 50 people, which isn't that big. And, we're not heavily funded. So having an in-house lawyer probably seems like a bit of a luxury, but so definitely one that I would recommend, if you can afford it, is having an in-house lawyer. And I think it pays for itself because, over the course of a year, there's always little things that it'd be nice to ask a lawyer, but you don't, or, you need to ask a lawyer, then you have to pay for that. But then just having someone in-house, that just makes a huge difference. You just don't have to worry about it. There's no legal fees. It's just baked into your payroll costs. So that's an interesting one, slightly unrelated to SaaS that's been impactful for us.
Lawyer, man, that's interesting. An in-house lawyer was the kind of
Yeah, like in-house counsel. I mean, there's loads of. I mean, I think our having really great leaders is. But I think everybody says that, right? Like we have a great VP customer success who's been with us like more than 9 years, and all of his people are really well tenured, and we have a great VP of engineering and a great CRO, and so sort of my VP finance. So my senior leadership team have all been with us for many, many years, and so each one of those super impactful, gives me tons of leverage to focus on the business as a whole and product where I sort of own that domain. But yeah, I mean, I was trying to find something a little less cliche, right? Everyone, leadership's obviously important. And I think, sometimes when you hire one really amazing hire, it doesn't really matter where it is. Could be an engineer, could be a designer, could be a salesperson. They in a business with less than 100 people, they can be, really game changing.
it seems, when you started the subscription analytics product 10 years ago, there was a lot of demand, right? So there was not as much competition. But in
Yeah.
the CRM space that you started 2 years ago, there's a lot of competition. And you guys are successful. So the question I would like to ask you, what advice would you share with other businesses, with other founders who are in a very competitive space? Like, what can they do to succeed like you guys are doing when there's so much competition?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think, you know, yeah, there's always going to be competition, and you just always have to fight against that, and kind of I think being yourself and bringing something unique to the table, like, is so important. I think if you're just a copycat of another solution, you don't really have much to bring to the table, that's unique. It's going to be really hard. So, in subscription analytics, when we got started, there wasn't any other products. There's maybe one or two getting started, a few months earlier and a few months later than us, but there was very little competition. And we see people launching subscription analytics products, a couple of times a year. Some new competitors get started, but they tend not to have like a sort of, it tends to be more of a Me Too product, and it's really hard to enter a market like that if you don't have something radically different. It's really hard. People, the market generally, they don't have mind share, for more than like 2 or 3 solutions at most. So with CRM, that's a hyper competitive market, but we're doing that as a second product, so we can take the profits from the analytics and kind of deploy those into, and it's a very long game. We don't have to make, tons of money really quickly from CRM for it to be a success. This is going to take 5-10 years to get significant traction, and we're okay with that. But obviously, if you're a startup with a new product, you have to be able to make revenue quicker than that, right? So I think there's a few ways to do it, right? Like if you have an advantage in go to market, right? Like if you're making a SaaS for doctors in Germany or something like this, then, and your co-founder is a German doctor with lots of industry contacts, like that's a unique angle where, it might be easier for you to go to market and kind of acquire customers. You have a language, specific language, specific regulatory environment. So there's sort of ways to do it that way. I think if you're building a general solution, like there's a startup called Supercut from the founders of Typeform release, and it's sort of a Loom sort of version 2 or a Loom competitor. And so if you're gonna launch a Loom competitor, you have to be really good at designing great products, right? And that's what the Typeform guys, I mean, Typeform's like this beautiful form product. They're really good at designing beautiful, well-crafted SaaS products, and they're sort of bringing that skill set now to building a next generation version of Loom, which is this kind of screen recording thing. So I think if you can build something that's kind of next gen, really beautiful, but yeah, you have to be really skilled at the craft of building beautiful software products, right? So you got to kind of, I guess you got to lean into your advantage, right? If your advantage is sales and marketing, lean into that, right? If your advantage is beautiful products, so you lean into that. If your advantage is that, you have some specific network or insight into, some niche, you lean into that. So I think, yeah, I mean, you got to compete. People want your money. People want your revenue. That's just the reality of the world we live in. That's never going to go away. So you have to kind of embrace it, enjoy it, and it's like anything in competitive space. Yeah, you got to just keep fighting. Make sure that every dollar you spend is spent well, right? That's pretty much all it comes down to, really.
And ChartMogul's been in business a long time. I mean, I was just talking to you, before the interview even, that 10 years is long, Nick. I mean, that means you got through the first 5-year hurdle, then you got through the next 5-year hurdle, and you guys are still crushing it. What would you do differently? Like, looking back on this journey, right? You guys done so well. What would you change in that process that would help other founders?
Yeah, we've been in business more. So what's also funny is it kind of lines up with so I was just before my 30th birthday when we launched ChartMogul. So I was just 29, and then I just recently turned 40. So it's kind of like my entire 30s was like, ChartMogul, and also raising my daughter who's 9. So it's kind of like these two things sort of happening at the same time. Anyway, that's a side note. What would I do differently? I mean, yeah, like I think early on in the company's life cycle, I thought, we raised some seed money, few million, $3.7 million in total. And I think I thought, we need to make a balanced company. We should have an engineering department, a product department, an HR department, a sales department, and it should be kind of like a big business, but just scaled down. And I think that that kind of sounds good in theory, that you should have all these functions. I think honestly, like, we should have heavily indexed on engineering in the early days much more, and just not had certain roles for longer, and just put the resources into more and more engineering. And so, you know, definitely I realized, when we did build up our engineering team about sort of 6-7 years ago, and the results that came from that was so remarkable, that I realized, oh damn, we should have just over-indexed on engineering earlier on, and not worried too much about having, so much in sales and marketing or in HR or other functions perhaps earlier on. So I definitely would have allocated more to product and engineering earlier, and then built up the kind of commercial side later. If you have that, I think if you're very well funded, you sort of have that luxury. Maybe that was a reaction to not being as raising tons of money, but definitely, and even now we're very, we're over 50% products and engineering. It's like 60% of the company is just product and engineering. So, I think we're sort of making up for it now. So that's definitely a mistake. We made tons of mistakes. Like so many. That's just the reality. The main thing is that you learn from them, and you try not to repeat them. Like I make all the same mistakes other founders make. Not if they make a hire that isn't working, they wait too long to make a change there. And I'm guilty of that, just like everybody. So, yeah.
You guys have employees all over the world, Nick. I mean, you got employees in so many different countries and so many different places. And I'm interested in, like, what are some of your learnings on how to make remote work, right? Like, how do you succeed with employees all over the place, right? Because it's so difficult to succeed with employees in the office, but ChartMogul, you guys are successful with employees all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think having lots of employees in the office is easier in some ways and harder in others, right? It's easier for sort of tight collaboration, with people, and creating sort of stronger connections and camaraderie with the team is definitely easier if everyone's in the office. But it's also like, sometimes it's harder to get, if you have to share sort of personal space with other people, it's sometimes harder to get along. And there's definitely, with 65 people, you might, if everyone was in the same office, you'd probably have more HR related issues would come up and all these kind of things. Whereas the people are sort of spread around and working from home, a lot of those issues just go away, or are just the frequency is just much lower. So there are definitely things that get easier with remote, but you have to work on the things that get harder, right? Like creating that kind of like camaraderie between the team, and get, knowing people on a more personal level is important for effective collaboration. So yeah, we do like a whole company offsite once a year. We bring everyone together, usually in Europe. Somewhere like last year we did our 10-year anniversary sort of party and offsite at the same time. We all went to Zagreb, Croatia, and that was a lot of fun. We had like 60-something people there, and basically rented out a whole hotel, and we spent like 3 nights there. It was really cool. And that's everyone kind of has a buzz coming out of that. We also do things like conferences, and we'll get a booth at a conference and invite a ton of people there, and they bring them together that way. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, you have to sort of, I think one of the biggest things is like making the time zones work. So we only do R&D, product development, in Europe and Asia, because there's relatively good time zone overlap. We don't do R&D in North America, but we do have go-to-market people there. So we have customer service, sales, account management in North America, but all the product development happens in Europe and a bit in Asia. So yeah, I think you want to only really collaborate across 2 time zones. I think it's not possible to collaborate across 3 time zones effectively. I think that's a big learning for us. If you're based in Europe and you're having to collaborate with people in North America and in Asia, it's a little tough. You've got to be working really early in the morning, really late in the evenings. You're going to burn out. So I think time zones and making sure those aren't too far apart, the people you have to work with really, really closely, that's an important one. And then just set everything up for asynchronous collaboration. Like, we document everything. We use Notion extensively for internal sort of documentation, et cetera. So try and make everything kind of async collaboration.
One of the most kind of important things in scaling companies, generally, it's hiring, right? Getting the right people on the team. And it's also one of the most difficult to
Yeah.
get the right folks on the team, because it's so
Yeah.
expensive if you make mistakes in that space.
Yeah.
What are some of your biggest learnings in hiring?
Yeah. Hiring, it's probably, most problems, once you're past your first sort of couple of 100,000 in ARR in a SaaS business, I think most issues come down to hiring issues, right? As long as you have as the CEO, your duty is to kind of set a clear vision and a clear mission, clear path for the company. And then I think as long as that's, buttoned down, everything else really comes down to having the right people. So any problem that you get usually is a people problem. So hiring, super important. I think one thing we found is, hiring more senior people in our remote setting is it's pretty hard to be a junior in a remote setting because you haven't had that in-office experience yet, maybe in your career. So we tend to hire more senior folks who are a little ways into their career. Obviously not too far into their career where they're kind of, looking to retire or something like that, but like a little bit more senior. I hire more for kind of, I don't necessarily worry too much about like how many years experience they've had. It's more about potential, sort of raw ability, raw talent, raw intelligence, competence. I think that's really what I personally value. And that those people kind of, you can put them anywhere in the company and they'll add value. And I think that's working with those sorts of people really energize me and keep me excited to come to work. So yeah, hiring for sort of that raw ability, intelligence, passion, people with a great attitude. I think that's really key versus, formal education isn't always a great indicator. And then, many years in industry isn't always a great indicator either. So I think it's about finding those people that have something to prove and, have that special something. I don't know if that's how do you identify those people is the hard part, actually. Yeah.
Nick, do you have like for example, like Peter Thiel, he has this interview question where he's like, tell me something that you believe is true that many people disagree with you on. Do you have like your own version of a interview question that you like to ask candidates that works well for you?
That's a good. So what I like to get, what I always try to get to the nub of is like, what is it? So these, usually when I'm doing an interview these days, it's like because they've already been through a few rounds of interviews. Maybe it's a new engineer, something like that. And, the engineering manager usually wants to hire that person and I'm the final person they're going to chat to. And what I like to get to the bottom of is kind of what their core, motivational drivers are, like what really excites them. Like with engineers, for example, there's lots of different types of, some engineers just really like the tech, some people like the challenge, hard problems and solving hard problems. Some people, really interested in new technology and things like that and exploring new tech. Some people are really like building product and seeing customers use that product and get value from that product. So you have to have a mix, but I'm always looking for the folks, who like building great products, who really enjoy crafting great product and seeing customers use great products, use their products. So I think that's like kind of what I index for a little bit more. So I always like to ask those questions and kind of listen carefully to the answers. Of course, you sometimes need some engineers who, really like solving hard problems, because sometimes there are hard problems like, scaling issues or performance or, optimizing, data pipeline and stuff like that, where it is just a hard problem and it's not particularly, you don't get that kind of customer feedback loop immediately like you do with shipping a front-end feature. But yeah, I always like to find out what are the core motivating drivers. Like if someone wants to be an engineering manager, for example, or a manager of any any department. I always want to know, why do you want to be a manager? Because to me, managing people is more of like it's something I only really do because it's like a duty. It's not very fun. When people want to be a manager or a leader, it's always like, what's the real reason? Is it because they just want to have something on their CV that looks good on their resume? Is it because they want to make more money? Which is fine too, but like what, or is it because they really think that they're the best person to lead that team, and that will be the best thing for the company, right? So it's always trying to figure out what's actually behind their motivation to apply for that job, be it an IC, individual contributor job, or a manager job. Like what is it that gets them excited? Because if you can figure that out, you can kind of figure out whether or not they're going to be successful in the role, right? If the thing they're actually going to be doing all day is the thing that they're really excited about and motivated by, they're going to get really good at it. If they're not already really good at it, they're going to become really good at it, and they're going to thrive, right? Whereas, if there's a mismatch between what they really find enjoyable and fun and are motivated and excited by, and what the company actually needs them to do, that's where it just never works out, right? So you got to make sure that's kind of lined up, what the company needs them to do and what they're, what really gets them fired up, right? And it's amazing how many people miss that. Even job seekers will apply for jobs, and sometimes it's just because they're looking for a job, they'll go work somewhere and then they're miserable because it's not what the company really needs, and rewards and values is just not what they're excited by.
Folks who want to sign up for ChartMogul, like, is it mainly for them self-serve? They can just, sign up and use the product, or do they need a demo? And for the folks who are interested to work with you, to work for your company, since you guys are remote in many ways, pretty much any talented individual can work for ChartMogul. Like, what should they do? Do you guys have listings for their jobs? Of course, we'll include a link, right? We'll include some link where they can check out which jobs you're hiring for, but how does a person get a job at ChartMogul? What should they do? And how about the customers who want to sign up for your product?
Yeah, so chartmogul.com, you can sign up for a free trial. As I said, if you're making less than 10K USD MRR, monthly recurring revenue, then the product is completely free. You get a super powerful subscription analytics platform for free. And if you're above that threshold, you get 2 weeks free trial. At the end of the trial, if you like the product and you like what it's doing for your business, you can put in your credit card and pay. We do have a sales team. We do have a support team. So if you need extra help getting onboarded, we even have an onboarding team. Then they're there to help. If you want a demo, you can schedule a demo very easily, and we'll give you a demo if you'd rather go that route versus self-service. So we kind of have all the options available. And then, if you need to pay by or invoice, etc., that's all available as well. It doesn't have to be fully self-service. And then, like if you're looking for a job, we do have some openings right now in engineering, jobs.chartmogul.com, I think, and they're listed there. We're generally hiring within the EU or Asia. So those are our two preferred locations for hiring, usually like East Asia or India, perhaps, and definitely within the European Union. Anywhere is fine with us. Yeah. So have a look at those, what's available on jobs.chartmogul.com, and apply.
And we'll include both links, right? We'll include the link in the description for ChartMogul. We'll include the link for the jobs. Well, Nick, I'm very grateful you came on the show and shared the ChartMogul journey.
Vlad, really, really grateful. Thanks for having me.